Class changes are coming in Midnight. We know this, and every expansion brings class changes. But what's different about these is Blizzard's kind of hacking and slashing of the classes. They're really simplifying a lot of the classes. They've been sitting around a theory of accessibility. That's what they keep talking about. They want to make the game more accessible, so they're gutting classes to do so. Let's see how Bellular and the rest of everybody feels about these changes, because they are sure as hell controversial. Let's check this video out here from Bellular.
Our plan for the first wave of public alpha is to rebuild all 40 specializations. That's quite a statement. It's what we've got from Blizzard here, and for some people, this is exciting beyond belief. Obviously, for others, this could be the beginning of the end of the World of Warcraft that they know and love, because huge changes are coming.
Yeah, it's controversial. I've seen both in every video that I posted about classes so far in Midnight. Some people are very excited about it. Some people think it's ruining the game, and they're putting training wheels on every class for everybody. I kind of sit in the middle. I'm not going to lie. I don't like managing 3 resources as a Blood DK right now. And part of the changes they're making should eliminate the need to do so. Bone Shield being an additional resource right now in the game is freaking annoying to me. So I think that's fine. Yeah, get rid of it. Make it part of our DPS as a standard. And I think it'll make the class more enjoyable. I can focus more on other things rather than worrying about that third resource that I got to deal with right now. And that's kind of what they want to do with a lot of the classes right now. Simplify them. Make them a little bit easier to play. Because they're porting the game to console, guys. Don't tell anybody.
But hey, at least survival hunters can now go and
just saying, I feel like that might be a thing.
And on top of that, Fury Warriors can finally transmog over to one-handers. And at long last, rogues have finally got a lot of love. But there may be a little bit of a catch here. So here's the deal overall. Throughout most of the War Within, especially as time went on, patches looked light on class changes. There were a few reworks, sure, some emergency fixes, but compared to Dragonflight, it was almost concerning. Now we know why. Blizzard was clearly preparing for this, putting resources into this, because now every single spec is getting substantial changes to match Blizzard's new vision, a vision that they call approachable. So,
look, I will say something else though. The classes are not just getting simpler, everybody's getting utility. If you guys remember Mists of Pandaria classes, how like everybody was kind of good at everything, which seems like we're going back to that, by the way, that everybody's going to have like a good interrupt, everyone's going to have a good ability to get out of things quickly. It seems like we're going back to that standard, and some people like that, some people don't. Some people like certain classes only being good at something because it creates more class identity. Some people want to be able to play the game, you know, more solo and delve run and shit like that, and they just want to be able to be good at everything whenever they play any class. So there's 2 different camps here, and I'll be honest, I'm not quite sure where I sit on it. I thought MOP classes were really good, so maybe I'm in the camp of everyone be good at everything. Is Bone Shield actually a resource, or is it an active mitigation? No, it used to only be a mitigation, but they made it so you got to stack it up to 5 at least to create good damage output. It affects your DPS, so keeping it stacked up is a thing that you have to monitor besides your other 2 resources. So it became a resource in this expansion, which I don't appreciate, and I'm glad that's going away. I love the original Survivor Hunter in TBC. We're going back to that kind of maybe? We're really going back to MOP. That's what I feel like.
Oh, we got to talk about approachable combat and what that means. And certainly this is where some of you may start to disagree. Now, Blizzard's stance is that WoW is too complex for most players. Between too many buttons, too many auras to track, and too many subtle talent interactions, many people just can't understand it. And in their giant post, they argue this impacts everyone, new players to skilled alike. And they say they have an aim. And it's an insanely ambitious aim that basically is to have their cake and eat it too. They want gameplay to be clearer, they want it to be easier to understand, but they also want to retain the depth of mastery. And to make these 3 paragraphs very short, here's what they're going to be doing. They'll be making the most unique and visual parts of your spec the important parts. That way, it's obvious what actually matters in your gameplay. Then, they're making sure that...
Again, this goes towards add-on pruning, right? Add-on pruning, combat add-on pruning is that you should know what's going on with your class visually. You should be able to look at your screen and understand what your class is currently doing, what you need to do next, what should be the clickable ability for, coming in maybe 30 seconds or so that you should be doing. These things should be obvious. You shouldn't need 17 add-ons to know what your rotation's supposed to work like. So I agree with those changes. And I also agree with some of this, maybe some of the pruning a little bit. I don't want classes to be all single button rotation lovers. I don't want that. I enjoy some of the skill, but here's the thing. Just because they make the classes more accessible and easier to pick up does not mean they can't still be, turned into a harder thing on the back end. What I'm saying is a highly skilled player can still pick up a simple class to play, and because of their high skill, be better than everybody else at playing that class. And I think that's what some people are worried about losing. They're like, oh, the noobs are going to be as good as the pro players. And no, that's not the case. I think even the most simple games out there, a pro player can always figure out a way to min-max everything and play at the highest level, while the other guy is just, he's picking it up and he's just playing it regular. I still think that's going to matter.
You don't need too much info to play. Basically, if you need to know something, they'll make it obvious via your UI, but they'll do that without crowding things. So to put this goal in relatable terms, they don't want situations where, as an example, there are a bunch of buffs and auras that you've got to manually track in order to play your class well, because that's just the thing that makes people feel like they need to use weak auras.
Right.
Okay, last then is cognitive load. Some specs will take more focus than others here, but as a whole, their goal is making sure specs don't require so much concentration that they aren't fun. Now, to actually accomplish this goal, they're making 4 types of changes, and these are changes across every spec in the game. So, first, ensuring you do not need add-ons. And the example they give is Roll the Bones. This
is what I said. That any class ability that requires an add-on to understand what's going on is a badly done class ability. I think so. I don't think you should ever need add-ons in this game. And yes, I see the console comments that there's like 8 buttons on a controller, so that's what it needs to be brought down to. Look, whether or not the game goes to console, I have no idea. Is it being built better for console right now? Getting rid of add-ons, single button rotation, simplifying classes. Yeah, all those things would be necessary if they really wanted to put this game on console. But at the same time, there are things about this game that do need to work better, even for PC. And one of them is the desire to have everything in the game work and be visually understandable, maybe even through audio, as somebody said, without the requirement for add-ons. I think that's such a it's an ask that I think is not too crazy. I don't think we should need add-ons to play the game. And right now, some classes, if you want to play it optimally, you really do need add-ons.
Massively simplified, where now it rolls a buff between level 1 and 4. There are fixed bonuses based on the level. It's still random, but it's nowhere near as complicated to reroll, as an example. You get fixed bonuses based on the level. It's still random, but it's nowhere near as complicated to reroll as it was previously, where essentially a lot of people would just compute that logic over in a weak aura and then have the weak aura tell them what to do. Second then, removing ability.
Let's be honest, any class specific ability that's complicated that people say, oh, this requires skill, and that's why Blizzard's getting rid of it, because this requires a lot of skill to understand how this mechanic works in your class. The truth is, no, it doesn't. It requires a weak aura. Okay? None of you fuckboys out there are really understanding how to do this shit without your weak auras and everything. You're claiming that the class requires skill when in fact it requires 3 add-ons. That's what it requires. And so that's why I don't think these changes are a big deal, because the skilled players out there, they're not actually skilled. They're just using 3 weak auras to understand how their rogue rotation works. And the other guy who doesn't know how to download weak auras, that's why he's not as good. Okay? Calm it down to the skill comments.
These that aren't, quote, meaningful. Like, say, removing some of Assassination's abilities that they just stuff into their cooldowns.
I give you credit then.
For Resto Druids, that means keeping Effervescence up will be easier than just pressing the button whenever it falls off. The third strategy then is modifiers. And this is a big one. Every spec is losing huge percentage buffs from talents, and all of that power is being shifted back into your base spells. The core idea is that whenever you press a button, it's going to do damage or healing by itself. It won't be relying on a bunch of talents to actually make it useful. Buffs still exist though, but they're smaller or flat damage instead of massive percentages. As an example, we can look at Essence Break from Havoc Demon Hunter. It used to buff Chaos Strike by 80%. Now, it just adds some flat damage instead. Though, there's one spec they may have gone a little bit too far on, or perhaps way too far on, and we'll talk about that one later. The fourth change then is, quote, important but subtle talent interactions. They call out Balance's Waning Twilight. It was one small talent, but it dominated their entire damage profile. So, they're gutting it, and they're also gutting others like it. So, that's what Blizzard wants to do.
One thing that they're doing a lot of with these talent changes and stuff is they're getting rid of the macro style of gameplay where you got like three abilities that really you shouldn't be using any of those three abilities without each other. So what people do is they macro the abilities together and it just becomes one button rather than three buttons for them. That Blizzard sees that that's happening. So like, well, why don't we just make it one button then? I mean, why are we having people take these extra steps to do this shit? Just make it one button because these abilities shouldn't be used separately anyways. And I think that makes sense. I think that philosophy is totally agreeable with. There's no reason to have three buttons become one button, and that's the way to play the game. I think that's silly. Maybe the question is, why can't they download weak auras? Because it shouldn't be required to play the game. It shouldn't be. If I'm being honest, the way I learned about add-ons was my cousin told me about add-ons. I feel like a lot of people, that's how they learn about add-ons. Is somebody in the game tells them, or somebody in real life tells them, like, hey, you got to go download these things to play the game the right way. And I just think that's a broken experience. I don't think that should be something. I think a game in and of itself should be able to be picked up and played properly without the desire to go to a third-party resource to get it done right.
And they've already started, so let's take a look at what the changes are to see if they've succeeded. Right, this isn't going to be a full breakdown of every single change. That's because there are 38,000 words of patch notes. I'm not kidding when I say I can only spot 3 specs without a major shift in gameplay, which, by the way, are Havoc, Frost DK, and Prot Warrior. And do you know why that makes a lot of sense? Well, because those were the last 3 reworks put into the game. That's not to say they've got no changes, though. They do actually have ones which should make them even better. And what I'm going to do today is pick out the biggest examples. I'm going to walk you through them, and we'll see what this new version of World of Warcraft looks like. Frost mages are a perfect example here. Obviously, without playing it for a while, you can't really tell how it feels, but I can tell you this. You're going to need a lot fewer keybinds. As an example, instead of being on their own buttons, Glacial Spike and Comet Storm now override Frostbolt and Blizzard whenever they're available. So essentially, you're getting similar effects, it's just happening in a somewhat different way, which cuts down on the number of keybinds that you need.
There you go.
In this case, 2.
That's what I'm talking about. The macro keybind shit. Like, why is there so many abilities here when one shouldn't be used without the other? There you go. Now they're one.
Keybinds. But obviously at a cost. That cost being that you can't choose not to use them. Though given the other changes that have went on, that's really not as bad as you might think. As an example, their whole shatter mechanic is changing.
Well, it's not necessarily the same as the macro example here. Basically, they're telling you what to use. It's that they're telling you, look, this is the ability you should use next. It's locked into one of these two. You make the choice.
Now, all of their spells stack a debuff called Freezing, and this debuff is popped by Ice Lance for flat damage. So basically, no more guaranteed crits, which means no more insane scaling, but also no more planning around the travel time and flurry charges that we'd previously been dealing with. And to make scaling even less crazy, Icy Veins is being removed, and now Ray of Frost is going to be your major damage cooldown. But in a gesture of goodwill, they're giving you your Water Elemental back as a talent, just without the ability to freeze.
I played, believe it or not, I played Frost Mage back in my days, back in the times, BC specifically, and I remember Icy Veins being a major part of the rotation. Having it up and running that shit and blasting off when it's up, man. That's gonna change them a lot.
Now I know that all seems weird, and it honestly is a bit of a crazy rework. So much is changing here. We've got all of the base damage increasing, our talent scaling is going way down, and a whole ton of other changes. The new Frost is very obviously simplified, and there are at least 3 fewer buttons to press. And essentially, that's the blueprint for one of WoW's most approachable specs. Let's try another example, and one that has often not been approachable: the Feral Druid. They're losing snapshotting on everything except for Tiger's Fury and from Prowl. And, at least in the opinion of some, even better, the icons of bleeds will now change to show whenever they're empowered, which I've got to say is a really nice little change.
That's something people would download an add-on for. Like, that's something that should be very evident. When is the ability empowered? Okay, well, how am I supposed to know the ability is empowered? Oh, I got to download an add-on so it changes the color of the button so I know that I should be using it at that time. This is literally what's happening here. And I really think it's funny when people talk about, again, get into the skill arguments, when they're like, oh, look at they introduced this button assistant thing and all that. What the fuck was Heckly? I know so many people who are playing this game as if it was Dance Dance Revolution, where they just had Heckley on, and they're just clicking the button that Heckley's telling them to click. Like, that doesn't work. Newsflash, that's not skill. You're just literally Dance Dance Revolutioning the game. It's so Blizzard introducing it was not these helper buttons or shit like this where it's telling you which button to click next or which button's now active. These were literally these were already in the game. People were just doing it via add-ons and claiming that they were skilled and pumping out big numbers.
But it does come at a cost. Blood Talons is completely gone. So is Brutal Slash and Adaptive Swarm. But in return, you're getting Chomp, which is a new...
Heckley is not going to give you max DPS. On the high end, you're right, Mac. If you're talking about that final bit, that's going to push you to the top 1% in this shit, you're right. And neither will this stuff. Because there's always going to be those small nuances where you can really min-max the shit out of it if you hold off for another second, if you wait for this boss phase to end, if you do this thing just right, you're going to do a bit more DPS than everybody else. But the truth is, if you were following Heckley, you were going to at least at a base level be doing decent damage, which was what a lot of people were doing, I'm telling you. But that's why I'm saying, even the simplification of classes, it's not going to completely eliminate skill from the game, because skill will always give you that little bit more to make you one of the top guys, even though the floor level is going to be a bit higher now, because really people who don't know what's going on, now they'll know a little bit more. Microsoft does not give a shit about skill or anything. They just want more money and want to port the game to Xbox. I'm telling you, this is the standard that people keep saying. And look, I don't disagree with the fact that they probably want to port the game over to console, and they want to make the game more accessible to people. They're literally saying it out loud. They're saying we want classes to be more accessible. So they want the game to be more accessible. They want to bring more people into WoW, and how do they do that? Yeah, maybe port it over to console. Just make it a less intimidating game for new players to play. Sure. But what I'm saying is, just because the floor has been raised in terms of where these people are going to sit when they first enter the game, because now it's going to be a little bit easier for them to play, doesn't mean it's ruining the end game for the people who've been playing for a long time and enjoy the skilled part of this game. I think you can have both at the same time. And I still think add-ons are bad for the game too, so getting rid of a lot of that shit's a good thing. Again, I think you can have both. I think you can have both.
Ability that
more
you can
accessible,
only
but
use
still
at
skill.
low energy. To
Gonna
put it
equal
simply
better
then,
DPS.
This reduces button count and it brings down the skill ceiling. At the same time, actually maximizing the use of Chomp at low energy does sound like a little bit of a challenge. The difference with Chomp, as compared to, say, Blood Talons, is that Chomp is way easier to understand and track. So basically, no add-ons would really be needed to make that stuff easier for you.
Yeah.
Now, these
Interesting thing about Game Pass, Microsoft just raised the price of that like a shit ton, like 50%, right? I still don't see. I would love to see the WoW sub be integrated into Game Pass, because I pay for both right now. I don't know if I'm going to cancel Game Pass at this point, but my kids use it a lot on the Xbox. They just download random games and play them all the time. But maybe that's a first step in integrating the WoW sub. You never know. You guys are right. How do you convince an Xbox player to pay a sub fee? That's another barrier to entry. If we're going to talk about accessibility of the game, the sub is a feature that stops accessibility to the game for sure. If they integrate it with Game Pass, though, well, you're probably going to get a lot of random Xbox players who are now like, hey, I'm already subbed to play WoW. Why don't I try it? Yeah, I'm literally sure they'll mesh it in, especially now that they're damaging the ultimate tier. Yeah, they might. This might all be a prelude to that. I don't think you guys are wrong.
Just all sound maybe great on paper, but I will admit they're a little bit scary. It's starting to sound like depth is being removed. Let's move on to another example, though, and that's the Unholy Death Knight, and again we see a similar story here. Now, a lot of people will be excited about this. Festering wounds are gone. So is Unholy Assault, which was a big damage boost cooldown. They also don't need Death and Decay up to cleave, they can just do it naturally. And overall, I'd say it's a big improvement, and one that actually doesn't have any caveats to it. But fundamentally, it's the same story.
I think these are good changes for
Anything
Unholy.
that was complicated to track or that scaled too harshly is gone. And this is a perfect example because people basically love it. It's managed to solve serious problems in the spec and introduce both disease-heavy and necromancer-style builds, which are things that people have wanted for years. They've even kept Gargoyle. Gargoyle ramps up damage based on what you do during the window, so it's hard to optimize. So basically, there's fantasy, there's simplification, and still there is depth. So it's a good example. Now, these class changes across the board are, I would say, rather elegant. The genuine class fantasy elements coming to loads of classes are the sorts of things we've waited for years and years. To just give you another example, Affliction Warlock is finally losing Malefic Rapture. It's back to spending in a stable Affliction, and people seem kind of overjoyed about it. So, from these examples, out of 40, it looks like Blizzard has met their goals. These specs are all definitely simpler. There are fewer buttons to press, they don't have as many things to track on nameplates or with add-ons, and the big scaling talents and abilities have been removed, allowing for more steady baseline damage. Now, the skill expression, I would say, seems to mostly still be there. But there is a catch, and that's that only time will tell if it's still enough to keep people playing.
Yeah.
You see, that's the real
I mean, look, Blizzard's done this before. This is not the first time that Blizzard goes and prunes abilities. I mean, we remember the great pruning. Was it WoD? Was it Warlords of Draenor when they they fucking reworked the talent tree and everything. They eliminated a lot of stuff from the game. Was it Warlords? I forgot which expansion they did that. But anyways, this is not the first time they've done it. They've done it, and then they recomplicate the specs a little bit, then they bring them back down, then they recomplicate them again. These things have happened in the game before, so people acting like, oh my god, what the hell? They're shocked that this is occurring is kind of crazy to me. It was a fun time. They could have reforged our gear. More talent points would be nice. I don't know about these new talents, but I hope it works out. They are giving us more talent points. We're getting 4 more talent points. Just FYI. Besides the new hero talent end hub thing, we're getting 4 additional points on top of that to pick up more talents. So we are getting more. Sam can't even remember, but he's going to tell us anyways. Yeah, I just don't, because I actually feel like it's happened twice at this point. We had literally Blizzard tagged it as the great pruning, but I even remember it happening another time besides that. So this has been occurring for a while now. Blizzard, there's ability bloat, and then they bring it back down. Now this time around, the thing that I feel like is a little bit different in that it's not just bringing ability bloat back down, but also eliminating the need for add-ons to play a class properly. I feel like both are happening at the same time right now, and maybe that's why people are freaking out a little bit. But I say just give it a chance, because I still think you can imagine it like a I don't know why I keep referring to this game today, but a Dance Dance Revolution floor. But imagine it's a grid of like 10 by 10. So you got like 100 steps that you got to make. Yes, the most skilled players, they're going to be able to hit those 100, steps with their feet. They'll be flying around in their furry costume doing all the things inside of the giant neon arcade. But then the regular players, the new guys are going to come in and they're going to be intimidated. They're going to see that floor and be like, oh shit, this is too much, man. I'm not going to try to play this game right now. I'm not going to try to learn this shit. Okay? So they leave. Instead, Blizzard's taking it down to, say, a 5 by 5 square. They got 25, right, to play with. It's not as intimidating. The skilled players are still going to hit them quicker. They're still going to be better. But at least now the barrier to entry is not as intimidating. Somebody else can come in and be like, hey, 25, yeah, I think I could do that. I think I could try to do that. They're not going to be as good as the skilled guys at it. But now you're getting more players in the game because it's not as intimidating. Also, you don't need weak auras. I don't know what I would consider to be a weak aura in my example. I don't know, fucking drinking G Fuel. Maybe you're chugging G Fuel. That's the only way you can actually play this game properly. Getting 30% off with code Samiccus too. But maybe that's like considered an add-on. So you don't need G Fuel anymore. You could play because you only have 25 now instead of 100 buttons to click with your feet. This fucking example's going off on a rant, but you get what I'm saying. It's a smaller barrier to entry, but the skilled players are still going to play better than the guys who just got here.
Danger here. Blizzard are fiddling with the part of World of Warcraft that's held up solidly for 20 years. That being said, it's held up with the support of weak auras, of boss mods, and all of these things that a lot of people now find themselves not really wanting. But most of all, the impression I get is that this, quite simply, is a new generation of WoW combat. I don't think we can look at 1 or 2 changes to our class and think, this will be way better, this will be way worse. This has got to be taken in context of the add-on changes, the new game UI, and also all the changes they're making within dungeons and raids. So though I do think this is a dangerous thing for Blizzard to change, I don't think it's something to worry about humongously just yet. And I'll tell you why. Here's the thing. Patch 11.2 has been one of the most fun patches of WoW, encounter-wise, for quite a long time indeed. And that really is important, because Midnight is going to be building on that. It will be going in a similar...
I have a question for the chat right now to determine whether or not you like Blizzard's new design philosophy or not. Do you guys, for those of you who run Mythic Plus right now, do you guys like Ecodome Eldani? Do you guys think that's a good dungeon? Or do you think it's complete shit and you don't want to ever run it and you think it's fucking garbage and you hate... Do you guys like Ecodome Eldani? Yeah. Yeah, I already know what the answer is going to be. Because it's the #1 run dungeon right now in the season. By a long shot. By the way, that's Blizzard's new design philosophy. Ecodome Eldani has visually, you can visually understand what's going on in it. The boss fights are understandable right off the bat. You guys remember, I ran Ecodome Eldani on stream day 1, and right away, I didn't have to go look up a video on how to do the boss mechanics. I understood it. It was just like, oh, that's a pie, I should get out of that. Oh, that's a soak, I should stand in that. Oh, that's a frontal beam, I probably should move out of that. It was very obvious what was going on in the fights. That's Blizzard's new design philosophy. Ecodome Eldani is a perfect example of the direction Blizzard's taken the game, and that they want everything. A skilled player will quickly understand it before a non-skilled player, but both of them will eventually understand it without ever going to an outside resource, because all of those fights make sense. They're all understandable. Yeah, oh, I see why. Yeah, exactly. Because it's their newest dungeon, and it fits their newer game style philosophy. That's why I was asking that. And I understand some people will say, oh, it's just the most run dungeon because it's easy. Okay, well, yeah, it is the most run dungeon because it's easy, but the reason why it's easy is because it's based on their new game style philosophy, and which also makes it more fun. You want to say easy isn't fun, or go look at the Dragonflight seasons. They're considered to be some of the easiest Mythic Plus seasons ever put in the game. They're also some of the most participated in and seasons with the least drop-off ever put into the game. So easiness sometimes does equate fun. And you could still have higher skill, too, and play an easier version of the game.
Direction. And we need to remember that class gameplay is just one part of the puzzle. We are heading into a world without combat add-ons. Blizzard have promised that means bosses and dungeons will be changing to compensate. We may even find enemies in Midnight that are a bit more taxing to make up for the relative rebalance between class complexity and encounters. Here's one serious possibility. Blizzard might be cautious. Without add-ons, many people will...
Matt, people stop a lot faster, though, in an easy season. That's not true. I could pull up the numbers again. This season has the best player retention numbers we've ever seen. By the way. This season has the best player retention, the least drop-off from week to week of any season ever. Okay, so it's clearly not the case that people stop playing, and it's because Blizzard keeps incentivizing people to keep playing too. They put the 3,000 IO amount in there. They're bringing back, don't forget, they're bringing back a turbo boost, which is going to bring another boost to player retention numbers because people are going to want to get their item levels up again. They found out ways to incentivize players to continue to play without just making the game extremely difficult and being the reason you keep playing is because, oh, it's so hard, I got to keep playing to get the shit I want to get. No, now they're just giving you more carrots, less sticks, I guess. That's the way you can say it.
Will need to readjust. They will need to relearn the game. Instead
you think I'm wrong? I'll pull up the numbers. I'll find
flashing screen telling them what to do. They'll need to watch the enemy cast bars and animations. And that is a serious change for a lot of people. If WoW is moving complexity from classes to encounters, then I think that is fine, actually. I think simpler classes will feel great. Everything will be just dandy. But the problem is, we just don't know if that's true yet, or if the whole game is just going to get a whole lot easier. And I've got one scary example for you in that, and that's healers, specifically the Resto Shaman. Healers are losing cooldowns, and they're shifting more healing into the baseline abilities.
Yeah.
But Shamans got hit real hard. Fian, a longtime guide writer, tweeted in disbelief at how much was removed. I'm not joking when I say they almost look like a vanilla or TBC healer now. That's absolutely huge. And with changes that drastic, and without seeing how Midnight feels to play, I don't just mean from some alpha testing at level 92. I mean at max level, in a heroic raid or a mythic raid, that sort of thing. Without actually having hands-on in that, we just can't really know how it's going to play. But thankfully, I do think it's not all doom. I think big changes like this are obviously part of Blizzard's plan. You see, at the start of this video, I quoted a blue post from them. And the rest of that post is relevant too. It says that what we're seeing is not the final version of any of these specs. It says that it's a first draft because they want us to play with
right.
them.
I was just about to say that. Shamans, if they really have an issue with the way it's going to play now, by the way, Blizzard's completely changing how healing basically works. They're kind of going back to healing's not going to be so difficult anymore because right now healing is such a difficult thing to do in the game that there's no healers. Right? Then nobody wants to fucking be a healer. You don't want to be the reason your group dies. And the truth is, if you're not playing absolutely perfectly right now because they squishified tanks, the group will die. So they're changing how that works, which I've been calling for a while now. Either make tanks stronger again or make healers better. But the way it is right now is kind of shit. Healing being easier, we'll see how that plays. If shamans have an issue with it, give feedback. Because Blizzard's been listening to feedback. They've been flipping shit around real quick lately. So that's the good thing. And I also see the comment from Dead in chat about you don't mind Blizzard getting rid of add-ons, but you just don't trust Blizzard to properly implement alternatives. I don't disagree. They don't have a great track record of getting shit into the game properly, and we're going to have some growing pains. I don't doubt it. We're going to have some shit implementation at first. Maybe DPS meters will come out and they'll be perfect off the bat because that might be something that Blizzard's got the back end for and it's going to be real easy for them to do. But then the Deadly Boss mod replacement is complete garbage. The weak ore replacement's complete garbage. The Plater replacement could be broken. You know, those things are going to happen. But I think if you give them some time, over time, they're going to get them right. And the game will be better off for it in the long run.
To play with them early and they want to get feedback. They basically want to know if
I'm gonna one-shot
where they have went too far, or perhaps where they haven't went far enough. Now, as I record this video, it's the 2nd of October 2025. Blizzard have not publicly said when this expansion is going to come out. We have seen one previously reliable leaker say that it would be the 26th of February 2026, and even just doing some napkin maths, my own calculations came out to March, and that was based on taking some War Within.
Remember when I said he was wrong?
Shifting them about relatively.
And I was
what
right.
What that essentially means, though, is it's October.
February.
They actually have
Expansion.
plenty of time to fix this. Not because the expansion is miles away, but because the alpha has only just started, but it started with major changes to all 40 specs already in. So, it'll be interesting to see how this overall rolls. My experiments playing World of Warcraft with the gamepad sure as hell will get a lot more interesting now that it seems the game is, kind of moving in that direction. Let me know what you think, though. Personally, and especially as time has went on, I'm finding myself enjoying the encounters and like the teamwork a lot more in World of Warcraft. And for the last few tiers, I've, not actually used boss mods or anything. I mean, literally our like heroic curve clear of Maniforge Omega was pretty much add-onless from me, other than some things to get gamepads actually feeling nice for the experiment that I was running. So, at least within that context, I can see these things working and being fun. Though a lot of you will hear me say that and absolutely eye roll, and I completely get that. The me that played World of Warcraft, say, back in Mists of Pandaria, who enjoyed things like double readiness on a hunter, yeah, he'd be eye rolling at that kind of thing as well. I think, with where we are right now, we just need to wait and see. But there's far more to talk about with Midnight, and if you want to know all the other things that have happened, check out this video next.
The Stalwart Time. Thank you for the follow, man. Welcome to our Scourge. I appreciate that. Yes. Time to raid? Oh, is it? I don't know. Is it? Too many DPS stand in the fire and don't press defensives. True. And Blizzard should create some more visuals to tell people to get the fuck out of the fire, even though I think that one's on the player. I'm all for Blizzard making the game easier, but damn it, I mean, if you're standing in fire, and that is not evident to you that you should probably get the fuck out of that, I don't know what the hell Blizzard's going to do to help you there. Example of toxic players, look at Sam's raids, would be a prime example. Well, I mean, the thing about my raids, too, is people get toxic towards me because, I'm a visual target. I'm literally live. You can just fucking say whatever you want to me and then see my reaction.